On a bright spring afternoon, the local park was alive with the laughter of children and the rustle of leaves dancing in the gentle breeze. Families spread out on picnic blankets, dogs chased balls, and a sense of calm filled the air, until the sudden bark shattered the peace. Layla, a quiet 12-year-old girl with soft brown eyes and delicate hands, sat on a bench with her caregiver, Ms. Jensen. Layla was autistic, and this park was her sanctuary, a place where routine and familiarity helped her navigate a world that often felt overwhelming. She liked to watch the birds peck at crumbs on the ground and trace patterns in the dirt with her fingers. But today, something different was unfolding. At the far edge of the playground, a sleek black SUV pulled up. The door opened, and out stepped a tall, impeccably dressed man in a tailored suit. His sharp eyes scanned the park, his attention more on his phone than the scene around him. Behind him, a massive Rottweiler stormed from the vehicle, its powerful frame tense and teeth bared, barking aggressively at anyone nearby. The dog's sudden fury sent a ripple of unease through the crowd. Parents gathered their children close, and the mood shifted from carefree to cautious. The man who introduced himself later as Victor Hale, a billionaire known for his ruthless business deals and icy demeanor, barely glanced at the chaos his dog had caused. To him, Diesel was just a status symbol, a show of power he controlled. Or so he believed. Layla's gaze, however, was different. She studied Diesel with a calm intensity that contrasted sharply with the dog's wild energy. Unlike most, she wasn't afraid. Slowly, she rose from the bench and took careful steps toward the Rottweiler, her movements deliberate but gentle. Layla. No. Ms. Jensen's voice was sharp but hushed, a warning born from concern. She knew the dog's reputation and feared for the girl's safety, but Layla's face was serene, her lips pursed as she hummed a soft tune only she seemed to hear. The barking grew louder, more threatening, and Diesel lunged forward. The crowd gasped and stepped back, but as Layla knelt down and extended her hand, the barking abruptly stopped. The dog's snarling face softened, eyes flickering with confusion, and then calm. For a moment, the world held its breath. Victor Hale looked up from his phone, eyes narrowing with disbelief. "What is this? Some kind of joke?" he sneered, laughing harshly. "You think a little girl can tame Diesel? That's ridiculous." His voice echoed with mockery and disdain. Layla didn't respond. Instead, she hummed again, a gentle melody. That seemed to wrap around the dog like a soft blanket. Diesel's tail twitched, and he sat obediently, eyes locked on the girl. Around them, whispers spread, astonishment, curiosity, and disbelief. But Victor only scoffed, turning away as if dismissing what he had just witnessed. "You're lucky he's tired," Victor said with a smirk. "This dog isn't for children or daydreamers." Layla's small smile remained. She stood slowly and returned to her bench, picking up her drawing pad. The simple act of drawing birds seemed to soothe her after the tension. The old woman on a nearby bench watched quietly, her eyes bright and knowing. She had seen many things in her long life, but sensed something extraordinary in the exchange between the girl and the dog. As Victor strode back to his SUV, still chuckling, he never noticed the change starting deep within the park's peaceful heart. For Layla, the encounter was not a one-time miracle. It was the beginning of something that would challenge everything Victor Hale thought he knew about power, control, and the quiet strength found in unexpected places. The next morning, Victor Hale's office buzzed with the usual chaos, phones ringing, assistants scrambling, and his calendar packed to the brim. But despite the relentless pace, something about the previous day's encounter lingered in his mind. The image of a small girl calmly facing down his aggressive dog, Diesel, gnawed at his pride. How could a child, especially one who seemed so fragile and different, have such an effect on a beast he'd spent months trying to control? Yet Victor brushed it aside. He was a man who had conquered industries, negotiated billion-dollar deals, and thrived on dominance. The idea that a girl's quiet humming had any real power over his dog seemed laughable. Still, curiosity poked at the edges of his mind, an uncomfortable itch he preferred to ignore. Later that afternoon, Victor decided to take Diesel for a walk in the park again. His mind was distracted, clouded with stress from a failing business. Diesel, sensing his owner's tension, mirrored it, growling at passers-by, barking fiercely at anything moving too quickly. Layla was there again, sitting on her usual bench with Ms. Jensen nearby. She was drawing, her pencil moving with a quiet intensity that suggested she was lost in her own world. But her eyes lifted as Diesel's growls pierced the air. The dog's leash slipped from Victor's grasp. In an instant, Diesel broke free, charging at a young toddler toddling too close to the edge of the playground. Panic erupted around them as parents screamed and rushed forward. Time slowed for Victor as he saw Diesel barreling straight toward the child. Before anyone could react, Layla stepped between Diesel and the toddler. She raised a trembling hand and began humming the same soft melody she had sung before. Diesel skidded to a halt, confusion flashing in his eyes. Then, as if obeying an unseen command, he lowered himself to the ground, his body relaxing completely. The crowd fell silent, stunned by what they had just witnessed. Victor stared, disbelief turning into grudging respect. "How?" he muttered, stepping closer, his usual arrogance replaced by genuine curiosity. Layla didn't meet his gaze. Instead, she turned to Ms. Jensen, who explained softly, "Layla has a unique way with animals. She senses their fears and calms them, with sounds and movements that most people wouldn't even notice." Victor's eyes narrowed, skepticism still lingering, but now mingled with fascination. He had never believed in anything he couldn't control or quantify. Autism, empathy, quiet strength. These were foreign concepts in his high-stakes world. "Sounds like magic," he said, half joking, half challenging. But Layla's smile in response wasn't magical. It was pure and simple, as if she knew something he didn't. An elderly woman seated nearby, who had been watching the entire scene unfold, approached. "It's not magic, young man," she said. Gently, "It's patience, understanding, and a heart that listens." Victor barely responded. He turned on his heel, leash in hand, but the seed of change had been planted. That evening, he found himself researching autism, animal therapy, and the strange connection between the two. Meanwhile, Layla returned home with Ms. Jensen. She barely spoke about the encounter, but her eyes sparkled with quiet satisfaction. In her world, where sounds and sensations often overwhelmed her, she had found a way to connect, to make a difference, one gentle note at a time. Days passed since the tense moment in the park, but the memory of Layla and Diesel lingered in Victor Hale's mind, like an unwelcome shadow. For a man who thrived on control, the idea that a child could calm his fierce dog had unsettled him, deeply. Diesel, a massive Rottweiler with a reputation for aggression, had tested every trainer Victor had hired and failed every time. The prospect that a quiet girl could tame him left Victor restless, confused. One afternoon, Victor found himself back at the park, not by chance, but by design. Business meetings were delayed, and an inexplicable pull guided him toward the place, where Layla sat daily, seemingly absorbed in her drawings. Victor's usual entourage stayed behind as he approached alone. Diesel, sensing his owner's mixed emotions, tugged at his leash, barking aggressively at anything nearby. Victor's jaw tightened, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. As Victor paced nervously, Diesel suddenly broke free again, barking wildly, lunging toward a group of children playing near the sandbox. The crowd's reaction was immediate. Parents shouted, scrambling to protect their kids. Victor's heart hammered. He was about to call out commands when Layla appeared like a whisper in the chaos. Without hesitation, she stepped forward, her small frame poised with quiet courage. She raised a hand and hummed the same gentle tune that had stopped Diesel before. The dog's snarls dissolved into confusion, then calm. Slowly, Diesel lowered himself to the ground, eyes fixed on Layla. The tension in the park evaporated, replaced by stunned silence. Victor approached cautiously, his skepticism wavering. "How do you do that?" he asked, voice low. Layla looked up briefly, her gaze steady and honest. "He's scared. I just help him feel safe," she said softly. Victor blinked. In all his years, he had never considered fear as the root of Diesel's aggression. He had seen the dog as a problem to be fixed, a weapon to be controlled. Layla's words stirred something unfamiliar within him: empathy. Ms. Jensen stepped forward, explaining Layla's extraordinary sensitivity to emotions and sounds. "She's autistic," she said gently. "She experiences the world differently, but it allows her to understand animals like Diesel in a way most people can't." Victor absorbed the information, his mind racing. That night, alone in his expansive penthouse, Victor sat by the window, staring at the city lights below. For the first time in years, he felt the weight of something more than business, something human. He reached for his laptop and began researching autism, therapy animals, and the science of emotional connection. Articles, videos, and stories flooded his screen. One phrase caught his eye: "Neurodiversity offers unique gifts to the world." Victor felt a strange mix of humility and hope. Maybe there was more to this world than power and profit. Meanwhile, Layla returned home, unaware of the storm she had stirred in Victor's heart. She kept humming her tune quietly as she drew pictures of animals, the lines on her paper mirroring the calm she brought to those around her. Her gift was not just a talent, it was a bridge between worlds. Victor, Hale rarely invited strangers into his world. His life was a fortress of wealth, power, and carefully guarded secrets. Yet after the park incident, something in him had softened, just enough for curiosity, and something resembling respect to break through his steely exterior. One crisp morning, Victor reached out to Ms. Jensen. He requested a meeting, not in the park but at his private office downtown. The request startled Ms. Jensen. No billionaire had ever shown interest in Layla's quiet world before. On the day of the meeting, Layla arrived with Ms. Jensen, her small hand clutching her caregiver's tightly. The sleek glass building towered. Above them, a monument to the life Victor had built. Layla's eyes scanned the room cautiously as Victor entered, his presence both commanding and uncertain. Victor greeted them with a nod, his usual sharpness replaced by a tentative gentleness. He glanced toward Diesel, who sat calmly at his feet, eyes still wary but more relaxed than ever. "I've been thinking a lot about what happened in the park," Victor began, voice steady but with an unfamiliar vulnerability. "I don't understand. How you, Layla, can calm Diesel when no one else can." Layla looked at him, expression unreadable. Ms. Jensen spoke up. "Layla experiences the world in ways most people don't. She senses feelings and fears that others overlook. It's not magic, it's empathy. Her autism gives her a unique connection to animals, especially those who are scared or hurt." Victor absorbed the words but felt a stir deep within, a mixture of regret, confusion, and something he hadn't felt in years: guilt. He hesitated, then said quietly, "I had a sister once. She was like Layla. She struggled to fit in. I never really understood her, and then she was gone. I buried it all because it was too painful." The room grew heavy with unspoken emotion. Layla's eyes softened as if she could see the weight Victor carried. Victor continued, voice barely above a whisper, "I've spent my life building walls to protect myself. Maybe I built the wrong ones." Ms. Jensen nodded. "Understanding starts with openness. Layla's gift is a bridge, not just between her and animals, but between people too." Victor glanced at Diesel, now lying quietly beside him. The dog, once a symbol of power and fear, was now a living reminder of vulnerability and connection. The meeting ended with an offer Victor never imagined himself making. "If you and Layla are willing, I want to learn. Teach me about her world. About how to see beyond what I think I know." Layla smiled, a small, genuine smile that seemed to light up the room. That day marked a turning point. Victor began to confront the walls he'd built around his heart, realizing that strength wasn't just about control or wealth, but about understanding and compassion. Outside, the city buzzed with its usual noise, but inside that glass tower, something quiet and profound had begun, a journey toward healing and connection sparked by a little girl's calm heart. Victor Hale's mansion sat perched on the edge of the city, a fortress of glass and steel, reflecting the sun's harsh glare. Inside, the grandeur was intimidating: marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and walls lined with priceless art. Yet, beneath the opulence lay a tension, a sense of unease that no amount of wealth could hide. Diesel, the once untamable Rottweiler, paced nervously in the vast foyer. The dog's behavior had worsened in recent weeks, biting 2 staff members and snapping at guests. Victor's usual confidence had faded into frustration and desperation. Veterinarians had warned that Diesel's aggression might soon leave. Them no choice but euthanasia. That evening, Victor sent a message to Ms. Jensen, requesting that Layla come to his estate. The invitation was unexpected and confusing. Why would the billionaire suddenly want to see a quiet autistic girl who had once calmed his dog in the park? When Layla arrived, she was cautious but composed. The grandeur of the mansion overwhelmed her senses, the echoing halls, the unfamiliar faces, the swirl of new smells. Yet she held Ms. Jensen's hand tightly, grounding herself in the one thing that felt familiar. Victor met them at the door, his posture less rigid than before. "Thank you for coming," he said simply. He led them to the enormous living room, where Diesel lay on a thick rug, muscles taut, eyes wary. Victor spoke quietly, almost apologetically. "Diesel's been struggling. No one can calm him. The trainers have given up." Layla knelt a few feet from Diesel, who growled softly but did not lunge. She began humming the melody she had used in the park, her voice a soft thread weaving through the tense air. Slowly, Diesel's growls faded. His body relaxed, his eyes softened, and before Victor's astonished gaze, the dog lay down beside Layla, resting his head gently near her knee. Tears welled in Victor's eyes, the power of the moment overwhelming him. This fragile, quiet girl had done what no one else could. "Your gifter, it's incredible," he whispered. "I never believed it, but now I see." Layla looked up, meeting his eyes for the first time. In that silent exchange, something passed between them, a fragile trust, a glimmer of hope. Victor knew this was only the beginning. He needed to understand more, not just about Layla's gift, but about himself. For too long he had lived behind walls of power and fear. As Layla and Ms. Jensen prepared to leave, Victor made a promise. "We'll find a way to help Diesel, and I want to help you too. You've shown me there's more to strength than I ever imagined." Outside, the sun set behind the city skyline, casting long shadows. Inside the mansion, a billionaire's world had shifted forever, touched by the quiet courage of a girl who saw the world differently and dared to change it. In the days following Layla's visit to Victor's mansion, something remarkable began to happen, not just with Diesel but with Victor himself. The man who once ruled his empire with an iron fist started to soften, peeling back layers of armor he had built over decades. Victor found himself thinking more about Layla's calm presence, her quiet strength, and the way she seemed to understand things beyond words. He began setting aside time to read about autism, about empathy, and the science behind animal behavior. Slowly he realized how much of his life had been consumed by control and fear. Fear of vulnerability, fear of loss, fear of a world he couldn't command. One afternoon, Victor invited Ms. Jensen and Layla to his office for a proper meeting. The sleek, glass-walled room looked intimidating at first, but Layla settled easily into a corner with her sketchbook. Victor's voice was less guarded than before. "I want to learn from you, Layla. Not just how you calm Diesel, but how you see the world. I've spent so long chasing power, but I'm beginning to think I've missed what really matters." Layla glanced up from her drawings, her eyes reflecting quiet understanding. She spoke softly. "Sometimes the world is loud and confusing. I listen to what others don't hear, like the feelings inside animals and people." Victor nodded slowly, impressed by her insight. "I've been blind to that," Ms. Jensen smiled. "Layla's way of connecting is a gift, but it also takes courage. She's been learning to navigate a world that often misunderstands her." The AI conversation marked a turning point. Victor began to open up about his childhood, how his sister's struggles had been a painful mystery he had never faced until now. He confessed how losing her left him hardened, pushing people away. Layla didn't judge. She simply listened, humming softly to Diesel, who sat quietly beside her. As days turned into weeks, Victor arranged for Layla to visit his mansion regularly. Together they worked with trainers and animal behaviorists, using Layla's calming, melodies and gentle movements to help Diesel overcome his aggression. The process was slow and challenging, but progress was undeniable. More importantly, Victor started to change. He asked questions, showed patience, and even sought help for himself, something he never imagined doing. One evening, as the sun dipped, below the horizon, Victor and Layla stood in the garden, watching Diesel play peacefully for the first time in months. Victor turned to her and said, "You've taught me more than I could have ever learned alone. Thank you." Layla smiled shyly. Sometimes we all need someone to help us hear the quiet. Their bond grew deeper, a billionaire and a girl with a gift, both learning to break down walls built by fear and misunderstanding. In that garden, beneath the fading light, a new chapter began, not just for Victor and Diesel, but for everyone touched by the quiet power of empathy. As summer faded into autumn, the once distant worlds of Victor Hale and Layla Jensen grew inseparably intertwined. Their meetings became a steady rhythm, each visit at Victor's mansion a step toward healing, not only for Diesel, but for Victor himself. Diesel's transformation was nothing short of miraculous. From an uncontrollable menace, the dog had become calm, playful, even affectionate. Layla's gentle humming and patient presence unlocked something deep within him. A fear that had fueled his aggression, now replaced with trust. Victor watched it all with a mixture of awe and gratitude. His once prideful demeanor softened into quiet humility. For a man who had always commanded respect through power, learning to appreciate gentleness was a new challenge. One chilly afternoon, Victor invited Layla and Ms. Jensen to join him for a walk through his sprawling estate gardens. The air was crisp and leaves crunched beneath their feet. Victor's usual guardedness seemed to dissolve in the company of the girl who had changed his world. "Layla," he said thoughtfully, "I never thought I'd say this, but you've taught me what strength really means. It's not in control or force. It's in understanding and patience." Layla smiled, eyes bright but calm. "I've learned from you too. Sometimes people who seem tough need help being gentle." Victor chuckled softly. "Maybe that's all any of us need. Someone to remind us how to be human." The conversation shifted naturally to family. Victor shared stories of his sister Anna, whose struggles had haunted him for years. He confessed his regrets for not reaching out sooner, for building walls instead of bridges. Layla listened closely, humming her comforting tune as Diesel trotted, beside her, tail wagging. Inspired by their growing friendship, Victor announced a bold idea. "I want to create something meaningful, an initiative to help children like Layla and families like mine. A place where understanding and support replace fear and isolation." Ms. Jensen's eyes glistened with tears. "That's beautiful, Victor. Layla's journey could inspire so many." Layla nodded slowly, a quiet determination in her gaze. "I want to help too. Maybe my voice can be a bridge for others." Over the next weeks, Victor began planning a foundation dedicated to autism awareness and animal-assisted therapy. He reached out to experts, therapists, and community leaders. Layla's story became the heart of this new mission, a testament to resilience, empathy, and the power of connection. But beyond the grand plans and speeches, the real victory was personal. Victor and Layla had formed a bond that transcended words, a silent understanding forged in the quiet moments, shared with a once aggressive dog and a girl who dared to calm him. Their journey was far from over, but the walls of fear and misunderstanding had begun to crumble. In the glow of autumn's fading light, a billionaire and an autistic girl found something rare and precious: hope. The grand opening of the Hale Jensen Foundation was a day filled with emotion, hope, and celebration. The sprawling center stood proudly on the outskirts of the city, designed to be a sanctuary where children with autism and their families could find support, acceptance, and understanding. Victor Hale, once known solely as a ruthless billionaire, stood at the podium, his voice steady but heartfelt. Around him, families, therapists, and community leaders gathered, inspired by a story that had touched them all, of a quiet girl whose courage had changed not only a dog, but a man's heart. Victor began, "This foundation is more than just a building. It's a promise that no child will ever feel invisible or misunderstood, that empathy and patience will guide us, and that sometimes the smallest voices have the greatest power. He glanced toward Layla, standing beside Ms. Jensen, her eyes shining with a mix of nervousness and pride. Layla, who had once struggled to find her place in a noisy world, was now the Foundation's symbol of hope and resilience. Layla stepped forward, her voice soft but clear. Sometimes I can't always say what I'm feeling, but I know when. Someone listens. When they try to understand, this foundation will help kids like me find their voices and teach others to listen. Applause filled the room, tears glistening on many faces. In the months that followed, the foundation flourished. Children found therapy through music, art, and animal interaction. Diesel, now calm and gentle, became a beloved therapy dog, comforting those who needed him most. Layla volunteered regularly, sharing her gift and inspiring others with her courage. Victor watched the transformation with awe. He had learned that true strength was not in dominance, but in compassion. The walls he had built around his heart had crumbled, replaced by bridges of understanding and love. One quiet evening, Victor and Layla sat together in the garden of the foundation. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the blossoming flowers and laughing children. Victor smiled, his eyes reflecting a man changed by the quiet courage of a girl who saw the world differently. "Thank you, Layla," he said softly, "for teaching me how to listen." Layla smiled back, humming the gentle tune that had once calmed Diesel. "Thank you for learning." Their journey was a testament to the power of empathy, the truth that sometimes the most unlikely people can change the world in the most unexpected ways. And so in a city that often moved too fast and cared too little, a billionaire and an autistic girl forged a new path, one filled with hope, understanding, and the quiet strength of a heart that listens.